Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our November webinar. Today we'll be talking water. I'm really excited about the content today. I guess I'm always excited about the content. And we have some great speakers as usual. Today we'll be talking about our partnership with BOMA and some of the exciting work that BOMA has been doing at the national level to really focus membership and highlight their membership's efforts on water and waste. We talk so much about energy efficiency, but when we zoom out and look at sustainability and climate issues, water and waste are huge components as well and important to benchmark. So we'll be getting into some of that today. Before we do, I want to thank our sponsor, the LA Department of Water and Power, as always, for supporting this educational content and our work in the community. Housekeeping, as usual, we will have the slides and the recording out to everybody by Friday, along with some key takeaways and links to related resources, further reading, and a podcast for your listening enjoyment. To keep things orderly, we'll keep the attendee lines muted, but please do submit any questions via the chat box, which should be on the right side or at the top of your screen, depending how you're viewing this. We'll have plenty of time at the end, I think, for Q&A. And as always, we appreciate your feedback. Things you would have liked to heard more about or things that were really interesting, please let us know. My name is Dave Hodgins. I lead the LA Better Buildings Challenge. I'll be providing a little bit of an intro and facilitating the Q&A. We're joined by Maya Henderson, who's the Director of Sustainability at Kilroy, but also very involved at the BOMA national level with the W Squared Challenge, and will be providing that portion of today's content. And we're also joined by Jasmine Lomax, who's with Verdani, and they of course work with a lot of the major players, commercial office, multifamily, and others who are part of that initiative. And she'll be presenting a case study on one of their clients and some of the strategies that helped them achieve some real significant measurable results as part of the challenge. So before we jump in, a little bit of context. LA, like other cities, has published some pretty ambitious plans around climate and keeping in alignment with the goals of the Paris Climate Accord, what science tells us we need to do to keep this planet kind of a cool place to live. LA is second biggest city in the country, of course, and a commitment there also to environmental justice, economic opportunity for folks. There are science-based goals, as I mentioned, embedded in that plan, moving towards carbon neutrality by 2050 and working backwards from there. For today's conversation, I would point to 4 and 5 here on the slides. That's what's covered in this BOMA W Squared Challenge, and specifically today we'll talk about water. But eliminating waste, looking at ways to creatively reuse water in our buildings, in our irrigated areas, and so forth. Most of you probably know this, but as a refresher, typical water use breakdown in buildings breaks down thusly between cooling and heating, domestic and landscaping, if you have it. Of course, the specific percentages vary on the type of property, where it is, do you or don't you have landscaping, and so forth. But in general, that's kind of how it breaks down. And then across property types, the water use intensity varies. We're getting a lot more information about this as we get further into the existing buildings energy and water efficiency ordinance and the annual benchmarking. And I think a lot of this is intuitive, but the basic takeaway here is if your building's above what these averages are showing from CBEX, then there's probably some good opportunities. Also on the legislative front, California has been focused on water for decades now, but water efficiency conservation is making its way into code and even moving towards a per day, per capita allowance of 55 gallons per day. So this is becoming more mandatory, and before it does so, there's incentives. After it becomes mandatory, those start to go away. So at the state level, very important. I think everybody's familiar with the annual benchmarking requirements under the city's ordinance, and moving towards the performance phase of the ordinance as well. So the point is that water conservation is becoming required. It's a good thing to do. Drinking water should be for drinking, not for flushing toilets, but it's becoming more mandatory. So very excited to continue to partner with BOMA National and BOMA Greater Los Angeles. A big part of what LABBC does, of course, is benchmarking, helping to troubleshoot issues and processes with respect to that, and then providing some additional support. I won't talk any more about that now because I want to give the microphone over to my friend Maya Henderson to talk a little bit more about the W Squared Challenge nationally, how LA is done in the context of that, and what's coming next. Maya?
Hi, Dave. Thanks. Yeah, so let's get into these program goals. So as Dave mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, it's a lot of time and energy is spent on energy, which isn't a bad thing, but we noticed, water and waste are kind of getting pushed to the wayside, and building owners and tenants aren't devoting as much time and energy to efficiencies in those areas as they should have. So we really wanted to find a way to incentivize engagement here. So the lovely folks at BOMA International designed the BOMA W2 Challenge, which really looked at not only benchmarking water and waste through the Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool, the same tool we're all used to using for energy, but also looking at ways to start to collect and share best practices so that we all collectively can be better about water and waste management, as well as a way to recognize achievement, right? We're doing this as one with goodness in our hearts, but also we really want to be able to show folks that there are some benefits to get out of this. So if we go on to the next slide, I'll just give you a quick little program summary. So basically, this was a 2-year challenge, and it kicked off in 2018, and folks were asked to, one, sign up, but also benchmark their existing consumption and cost. So from there, we want to continue doing that benchmarking. Every year, you should be reporting what you're doing around water and waste through the tool, but we really want to see folks start implementing some best practices in 2019, so we could start to see what interventions we're taking and how that was impacting what was going on at the building level. So basically, the BOMA International is in quarterly reporting, and we found that the first year was a success. We had a large number of properties sign up. We had just shy of 2,000 individual properties sign up. Around 1,400 signed up directly for providing water data, and around 700, a little less engagement, unfortunately, around waste, which isn't surprising. But basically, we're really excited to see the level of engagement with this program. So when we look at the LA market participation, we had a very strong engagement in this area. Just shy of 33 million square feet were enrolled in LA. That's about 163 buildings, and we had 128 constantly upload around water data, about 53 consistently around waste. And so when we look at how we performed as BOMA Greater Los Angeles as opposed to BOMA WT metrics across the country, because mind you, this was a national program, we did very good. So if we look at our overall water use intensity for this area, we were performing at about 23 gallons per square foot, where the national average through this program was about 35, 36. And when we look at waste intensity per square foot, we were just shy of 3, where the national average was just over at 3.06. So we saw very good engagement, but also we saw results. And so basically, we're going to pass it over to Ms. Jasmine, and she is going to share a case study with you all to show you one way one building made improvements.
Thank you, Maya. So this case study will focus on waste. It's for City National Plaza, which is located in downtown Los Angeles. And it's just over 3 million square feet with 7,000 occupants. So this gives us a great opportunity to communicate with tenants on our programs and initiatives for the building. We utilize BOMA's Water and Waste Challenge to sort of get a sense of where we're at when comparing with our peers. As you can see right here, this chart demonstrates, as Maya just mentioned, the national average as far as waste is at about 3 times that of City National Plaza. And so it just shows how well we're doing as far as waste reduction. And then the next slide, thank you. This, on the upper right side, you can see that from 2017 to 2018, the waste generation did increase about 50%, but also waste diversion increased. And we're able to use utility automation to look at the percent of waste that's been generated year over year. And after going through the BOMA comparison that started in 2018, we can see just how well we're doing. And the reason for this, if you go to the next slide, is just being able to engage tenants through lunch and learns and signage, and just continued communication through like the downstairs retail about composting and identifying what's allowed to go where, and just being consistent, so we can continue to increase reduction and diversion. Tracking.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. So just kind of want to check in and let folks know what's next in the W2 challenge. So effectively, we are at the end of the 2-year challenge where folks should be reporting their data. We want data captured through the end of this year. And then effectively, Energy Star and its partner Waypoint will spend the next 6 months analyzing that data to really understand how folks, again, engage with the challenge, what outcomes what we're seeing, what impacts were realized, and really start to determine some award categories. And so these will all be performance-based, but once those are established, we will see awards start to be handed out in June of 2020. So if you haven't already, I would definitely encourage you all to go ahead and sign up for the W2 challenge. You can definitely kind of sign up and engage retroactively. So David, if you go to the next slide, you can go sign up for the W2 challenge, report your building usage over 2018, 2019 if you saw some great some reductions, but you can also sign up through that website to start to be recognized if you do, again, see any great reductions made or efficiencies. So we definitely encourage you to engage, check out the website, learn more about it, and sign up if you haven't already.
Great, thank you both. And continuing on that, the BOMA W Squared Challenge is a national initiative, of course, as Maya was speaking about, and each year we do our local LABBC Innovation Awards. We do have a category for water efficiency project of the year, and so it's an opportunity also for local recognition. Very simple. We're using the same data that they're using for W Squared, which is through Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So it's very easy to do both. And I would just point out a distinction between the two is talking with Waypoint and BOMA International. That award is really based on strictly on gallons and percentages. Our local awards, innovation awards, consider gallons and percentages, of course, but also account for innovation, as the name implies, in terms of execution, stakeholder engagement, and so forth. Understanding that certain buildings, if you're already very efficient, taking it even a step further is that much more difficult. So I think the two things complement each other very well and encourage buildings that are interested in highlighting some of the initiatives that you've undertaken to do both. So to recap today's discussion, this was a fairly quick webinar today, but I hope we got the update across that on the legislative front, water conservation efficiency is really becoming mandatory. A lot of you are working on it already, so you're ahead of the game, but we need to really keep our eye focused on this. There are lots of resources out there from BOMA, from BOMA GLA, from LABBC. I'll have links to those in the follow-up email, and we have some supplemental slides today that will be attached also with that, with links to make those easy to get to. And of course, we're here as well to provide thought partnership on opportunities that you see. We do see a lot of projects, and our technical advisors get involved in a lot too, and so we can share experience about what others have done, what's been challenging, what's been working, technologies, and so forth. Congratulations to BOMA GLA and your membership. It's really incredible, the participation and the results. I think we're a third lower than the national average in terms of water use, which speaks to the quality of management in our buildings. And I'm excited that there's still opportunity for folks to get involved and bump those numbers up even more. And again, you can get lots of mileage out of that same little piece of work to get recognition through this collaboration between LABBC and BOMA. So before we open it up for Q&A, I thought this was a nice quote from Ken at BOMA International, who's been chairing the national initiative. And it's participation is key. And I think, as Maya said, that really an overwhelming overachievement in terms of participation. I think they thought they'd be lucky to get 100 buildings, and Maya shared it was more like 2,000 plus. So that's excellent, and very excited to continue on that, working with BOMA GLA here locally. So look out for more announcements from BOMA and from us over the coming months. And don't forget to submit your projects, get involved, get some recognition for what you're doing. So with that, we have time for a couple of questions, if anyone has questions. Wonderful. So a question about incentives from LADWP. So the question is, can I get incentives for improving cycles of concentration in my cooling tower? Yes, absolutely. That incentive is paid out over time based on M&V. So you want to be sub-metering your makeup water as well as your blowdown so that you can show the savings. Happy to share some examples of some successful projects that have taken advantage of that, and also think about evaporation credits. If you don't apply for one, you don't get one, and you actually get charged for discharge of more water than you're actually sending down. So if you haven't looked at that, I definitely recommend doing so, and we can provide a form that you can submit. So it's a good question. A lot of buildings, I'll just elaborate a little bit. A lot of buildings we see are running at about 3 cycles of concentration. You know, LA's water mix is always changing and variable, and so that seems to be about the average, but getting it up to 6 or 7 is very doable and safe, we're seeing, and that translates into millions of gallons a year of potable water savings, depending on the size of the tower. So if you're not above 3, there's definitely some opportunity there, and please do reach out. Great. Another question about water savings opportunities. What are some of the kind of more creative projects that we're seeing, or newer projects? We're seeing a lot more interest in groundwater reuse, and some very creative applications for that. Certain areas of the city have a lower water table, where that means that buildings have issues with groundwater infiltrating subterranean parking or any subterranean space that needs to be pumped and treated and discharged, which is really just a cost, and there's no benefit derived from from that water. It's just getting pumped from the aquifer into the sewer and out to the ocean generally. There can be lots of opportunities to treat and use that water on site. I'm aware of about half a dozen large projects that we're involved in that have moved forward this year. And there are entire swaths of the city around Westwood and West LA, parts of Hollywood, Mid-City, that have this type of opportunity. Is pretty common, even in parts of downtown. So if you have groundwater infiltration or dewatering issues, that really could be an opportunity for some beneficial on-site reuse, and there's incentives for that as well. Wonderful. Well, I think these were really great questions. So I think we can save a little time. I just wanted to remind people of some upcoming dates. The call for submissions is open through December 31st. That's both for the local LABBC Innovation Awards and to sign up for the W² Challenge and be part of the competition for that national recognition. So do reach out. Again, we'll be including links to how to do all of that. We're going to take December off for webinars, so we'll resume in January, where David Jaco, who's the Director of Efficiency Solutions at DWP, will give his kind of look forward, look ahead at what's coming from DWP as they look to modernize the grid, look towards more grid interactivity for buildings, distributed energy resources, all that good stuff, smart buildings. And then our awards event will be April 1st. BOMA's National is in June. So some fun stuff coming up. Please do stay in touch. We're tweeting, we're LinkedIning, we're Facebooking, all of these places. And I will be sending out a link with recap and supporting resources to everybody on our email list. So thank you all for tuning in today. Thank you, Maya and Jasmine. I think this was great. And I look forward to our continued partnership. Thanks, everybody.